Folks, I rolled back to get this on CNN. This is the shooting of Dwayne Daunte Wright, excuse me. And they said that he had an expired license. Uh, was the reason they stopped him. Wasn't this? Uh, his mom said it was something about air freshener. So he came out and basically was arrested without ceremony. Uh, and and then he started to do that. Yeah. And he has a gun out. Look at him. He's got a gun out, pointing his gun at him. This is ridiculous. And he drove off for being shot.
Can you turn the lights back on, please? As you can hear, the officer, while struggling with Mr. Wright, shouts, "Taser, taser," several times. That is part of the officer's training prior to deploying a taser, which is a less lethal device. That is done to make her partners aware, as well as the subject, that a taser deployment will be imminent.
But he pulled out a
During
gun.
this encounter, however, the officer drew their handgun instead of their taser. For informational purposes, we train with our handguns on our dominant side and our taser on our weak side. So if you're right-handed, you carry your firearm on your right side, and you carry your taser on the left.
Whoa! Hey, wait a minute, folks. I gotta. All right.
This is done
This is what happened with Oscar Grant with respect to Johannes Meserly. They said he was pulling a taser, but the thought was maybe I'll just say this: in order to cover up that they were actually shooting him, they then came up with a taser excuse. This is not the first time this kind of reasoning has been offered. This is a defensive posture.
purposefully and is trained. As I watch the video and listen to the officer's commands, it is my belief that the officer had the intention to deploy their taser, but instead shot Mr. Wright with a single bullet. This appears to me, from what I viewed and the officer's reaction and distress immediately after, that this was an accidental discharge that resulted in the tragic death of Mr. Wright. I've asked the BCA to conduct an independent investigation into the shooting and death. Once they are completed, I expect they will submit their findings, independent of me, to the appropriate authorities, the appropriate attorneys that will look and review this case. I'm also stressing that I do hope for the community to be patient and allow this criminal investigation, to be completed as thoroughly as possible. I believe Mr. Wright deserves this, as do all involved. The officer is currently on administrative leave. Make a short comment about what happened last night to our community, a community that I've been a part of for 27 years. I've seen some of the worst damage to this city I've ever seen in those years. Again, peaceful protesting, expressing yourself, we fully support that. But the ravaging of our businesses, the looting of our stores, the destruction to our pharmacies, we cannot tolerate that. I'm hoping that the community will have this level of transparency and know that this is being investigated by the correct authorities, which is the BCA. Unfortunately, they're not here today, but they are handling the investigation. And I have very little information besides what I've just given to you because they are handling that investigation. Mr. Mayor, do you have any comments that you want to make?
All right, so we're going to open it up for questions, but I just want to reiterate that, obviously this is deeply tragic, and we're going to do everything that we can to ensure justice is done, to ensure that our communities are made whole. And with respect to the events last night, obviously there were folks in our community who were grieving, who showed up initially at the location where Daunte Wright was killed, and we're gathering, and obviously later on, as the night went on and unfolded, there were a series of events that led to an escalation in the protest later on into the evening. Later on, I did issue a curfew, which was in place until 6 a.m. this morning, to ensure that we're taking steps to keep the community safe. We do want to emphasize that we believe strongly in people's rights to gather and to express their grievance and to protest. That is a fundamental American right, and we're going to protect that right. And at the same time, we're going to also work to protect the safety of our community. And so we'll now open it up for questions.
Is it going to be sent over to the Hennepin County Attorney's Office for possible charges?
Chief, it's far too early to know which authority is going to be prosecuting, if it's their prosecution. So I don't know how that's going to play out. Unfortunately, the BCA normally is present here during these types of conferences. But what I've understood is the releasing of video this early in a situation is not something that they condone. They leave it up to me to do that. And as I decided to do that, they're not part of this conversation. They're not part of this press conference at this time.
Why did you decide to do that?
I felt the community needed to know what happened. They needed to see it. I needed to be transparent. And I wanted to be forthright. I due respect to Daunte as well.
Chief, can you talk about what led to the traffic stop? Daunte Wright's mother told reporters he had an air freshener hanging on his rear view.
From what I've understood from the public safety briefing, there was an expired registration on the vehicle. That means the tabs were expired. Upon arrival, when the officer made contact, I think at that time when he walked up to the car, he discovered that there was a hanging item from the rearview mirror. So there was a contact that the officer went up there initially for, obtained his ID or his driver's name, and he walked back to his car, and at that time he ran his name and he found out that he was a warrant. That's why they were moving from the car and they were making a custodial arrest.
Can you tell us more about the warrants?
I have very little information on the warrant other than it was a gross misdemeanor warrant.
He hadn't paid the ticket? That was it?
Because when they issue a warrant, they had a warrant out for me once because I hadn't paid the
That I
ticket.
don't know.
So there was
Arrested for not paying a ticket.
in the US and around the world that had Daunte Wright been my colour, this wouldn't have happened to him. Why is it that police officers in the United States killing young black men and young black women far, far, far higher rate than they do white?
I don't have an answer to that question.
Yeah, they could have just simply given him a ticket to appear
Was there a gun found in the car?
and said, you know, you need to take care of
I did
this.
not search the car, but I did
That's
not
all they had to do.
in the vehicle.
The officer, is she under any type of
There has been
mental evaluation?
There has been a fair amount of social chatter in media, which I don't normally comment on, but there was some comments in social media that she had committed suicide. That is not true. That is not true. To the best of my knowledge, she's being taken care of right now.
What can you tell us about this officer and how long she's been with the department?
At this point in time, I don't have that. I will not release that information. That should be released very shortly, though. I believe the BCA has a system in place where they'll be releasing the names of all parties involved, and also all their training records and all that information as far as tenure and seniority. That'll be released shortly.
And could you advise again, do you plan to step down as people call for your resignation after the actions outside of this police department last night?
At this point, I do not.
Chief, what was happening then? What are we seeing in the video prior to that? The shot you described, the taser and the weapon, what was happening?
I'm not in the mind of the officer. I can only see what you're all seeing. I can couple that with some of the training much of the training that I've received, and that's why I'm believing it to be an accidental discharge.
But prior to that, there was some sort of activity going on with when they were trying to take him into custody.
It appeared to me from the video that the individual was trying to get back into his car to leave.
How often do officers go through firearm training to try and maybe prevent something like that happening when you don't make that kind of mistake? Is it annual training or is it, how does that work?
We have numerous trainings throughout the year. We don't try to lump it all in one group, so there's numerous
Folks,
trainings.
there's a,
We do
there's
tactical
a,
training, we do firearms training, we do taser deployments. We have pretty thorough taser requalifications on a yearly basis, but then we also do a number of scenarios and role-playing exercises as well. I can take one more question, please.
In the midst of a pandemic, why was it a priority to pull someone over for expired tax?
And I don't know if that was a priority, but it was a violation that the officer observed and initiated a traffic stop.
Chief, are you aware that there's a significant delay? Are you aware that there's a significant delay in getting tabs and things of this nature from the DMV? So even people who have purchased tabs are unable to get them because there's a 2 to 3 month backlog. Are you aware of that? And is your staff also aware of that? And have you made any type of recommendations to your staff to be mindful that we're in the middle of a pandemic and don't pull people over for tabs, particularly because there is a significant delay in getting those tabs from the Department of Motor Vehicles? Are you aware of that?
I am aware of that.
Police.
I am aware of that.
Is your staff aware of that?
Yes, they are.
and they did it anyway?
I'm sorry.
Whoa, I stopped. Okay, he stepped. That's where we got that part, folks. But he admitted that his staff is aware that there's a backlog, and yet they were going to arrest this fellow. Oh, that sickens me. They were going to arrest Daunte Wright for an expired tag, even though they're aware there's a backlog in people who paid their tags and haven't gotten them. And so he may very well have ran it, and the information may not have been inputted, or his parents did. This is beyond shameful. Subscribe to Zenny62 and bookmark oaklandnewsnow.com.